See, but I can see the sound of that.
Okay.
I'd
I'd like to get started here, people.
No, the logic part, there is a volume, and you might want to raise the volume on.
Okay.
Can,
Sometimes
are people having trouble hearing me?
Hold on,
sometimes in Zoom, you can like on the bottom
go ahead, Jan.
on audio.
Can people hear me?
There you go.
Yes.
Is
Okay.
it Logitech? I can't remember who makes that.
Are we all set? All right, I would like
Sometimes it gets
to,
switched.
Oh, there we go.
I would like to open this public hearing. This is a public hearing of the Norwich Planning Commission. And I think what I'd like to do first is introduce the Planning Commission, and then I'll go through what's going to happen this evening so everybody knows what to expect. And then we'll open it up to the meat of the conversation. My name's Jan Lasbra. I'm chair of the Planning Commission in Tracy Hall there. We have Jeff Goodrich, who's vice chair, and PC members Bob Pape, Christian Spalding, Vince Crow, and we may have, I don't see Ernie yet, but Ernie Ciccatelli would be, and Mary Gorman are the other members. So welcome to everyone. What's going to happen tonight for this hearing? I will have about 5 or 6 slides, the purpose of which to give us all common background so that we know what we're talking about and what's not on the agenda for tonight. And then we'll open the floor for public comments. We have some that have come in by email that will get mentioned or read into the record. Once we have taken all the comment from the public, either Zoom or in person, then we will close the public hearing. The Planning Commission will continue on a deliberation phase of that topic about the public hearing, depending on the comments, the level of changes or proposed edits that need to be discussed. The Planning Commission could do one of several things. We can continue to another meeting. We could vote to amend the edits and pass them on to the select board, or continue with the current version. But we'll decide that after the public hearing. So with that, I will jump into the presentation, and then as soon as I'm done with this, we'll open it up for people's comments. Stephen?
Before you start, if anyone hasn't signed in yet, if you could, please, it's sign-in sheets on the table behind you. Thank you.
Sure.
Sure. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and we'll keep track of the Zoom participants' names for sign-in.
Okay.
So, big picture, what are we talking about here, and what are we not talking about? We haven't touched the zoning regs since 2009 or the subdivision regs since 2013. So we are behind on a lot of things related to state law changes in that time. And we need to really modernize and update certain things so that we are congruent with state law. That's the number one driving point here. And really what the Planning Commission wanted to do was do a bundle of relatively straightforward changes that included all of the state regs updates, and get ourselves on solid legal footing, and then address bigger policy issues. So that list of bulleted items there are more substantial policy issues that are not addressed, are not changed, and there are no changes made relating to, this is not the town plan, this is the zoning and subdivision regs. We're not changing anything to do with solar siting, capital planning, short-term rentals, the zoning district densities or definitions. None of those topics are included in these proposed changes. Those will be the next thing you can see on our agenda. Once we get through this topic, we will do our goals and priorities for the coming months, and we'll decide essentially what order to address those bigger issues. And so that's that I hope kind of simplifies the things on the table. It's a relatively, I wouldn't say mundane, but it does not open up big topics at this point. This is a content from the official warning itself. I'm not going to go into it in any detail because the next few slides pull out the changes and tell you before and after what we're proposing. But the things that are kind of in a different color there in purple, we're going to be talking about things relating to affordable housing and on-farm businesses, and then some compliance and issues like parking and waivers and those sorts of things that are really trying to clarify the regs to be in compliance. Hey, Ernie. So the proposed changes really break down into 4 categories shown here. Not surprisingly, with this kind of an update, the miscellaneous category is the longest one out of the 4. But I'll step through those 1 slide each, and then we'll be ready to open it up. There are mostly zoning regulation changes. The subdivision regulation amendments relate only to the lot merger issue, which I'll mention in a minute. So starting with agriculture, the first 2 topics there, accessory on-farm business and roadside agricultural stands, are straight out of state law requirements. To be up to date, we have to take the definitions given for those out of the state statute, permitted use in all districts. And so that's what we've done. And you can see in the packet what those definitions look like and how they're in there. What I've done in this table, and it's in the packet as well, is to give you the exact page numbers to find what's being referenced. So those are the top 2. Open air markets are also not mentioned at all in the current regulations. But in the new regulations, they're defined, and you can read that in the definitions table, and they are conditional use in all districts. The reason I have that asterisk there is it's actually a typo in our compilation where open air market isn't included as a conditional use in commercial industrial. But it should be, and it will be before we're done here. So that is a new defined use that is conditional in all districts proposed. So those are the 3 things relating to agriculture. Relating to housing, under duplexes, this is again straight out of state statute requirements. And what it says is, any place where you can't put any special rules that distinguish between anything you can do a single family dwelling in terms of standards and setbacks and rules, you have to do the same for duplexes. And so that's what that proposed regulation 3.04 states, that exactly, that they cannot be subjected to anything. You're trying to encourage duplexes. It's similar for multi-unit. But it's in Norwich, the locations and the facilities for multi-unit are much less available and important. But the duplex change is the one that matches the state statute. On ADUs, we simplified. There were 2 different kinds of accessory units in the previous thing, and they were conditional uses which needed a full permitting process. The idea was to encourage diverse housing stock, encourage ADUs, and the new language proposed makes them a permitted use in all districts. I believe that part of it is required by state statute. And then the size of the 30% of the principal dwelling, or 1,200 square feet, the 1,200 is higher than the state minimum of 900. And then the permitting is streamlined. The density bonus for a planned development, this was a recommendation from the Affordable Housing Subcommittee to increase, if you do a certain number of affordable units in a PUD, you get a 100% density bonus for affordable, whereas right now it's 50%. And that's just a specific, a very specific type of project that could happen. We don't get very many of them in Norwich, but it's an incentive. We had a category to try and help the DRB have a little bit of leeway with enough clarity to do their job, but give them some flexibility and some discretion. And waivers is one methodology. They were referenced in the previous document, but in multiple places and not very clear. We've consolidated them in one place and put as much clear language as possible to say what and how waivers are decided. Then the DRB has the authority to use that tool. Similar other uses is an officially defined thing where the DRB can look at an application that may not be exactly specified under conditional uses, but it's very similar to those allowed in that district, and the DRB has discretion to allow that. It's very hard to predict exactly everything anyone might do. And so we're trying to give them that discretion. And then finally, on the miscellaneous side, several of these are simply ones where the state is in charge of regulating the topic, and there really was no reason to have it in our bylaws because the state would trump it anyway. That applies to public water supplies. Some of the pond regulations were redundant with what the state would have done. That applies to some of the telecommunication topics. On excavating and fill, we reduced that number that triggers a permit from 500 cubic yards to 200 to try and get a little better handle on the large operations of moving dirt around in Norwich. Parking goes along with state statute and gives tighter, more defined and clearer standards. And then that lot consolidation and merger, which is the piece that touches the subdivision regs. Previously, you had to treat a merger as a boundary line adjustment and get a permit, a much more detailed process through the DRB. And applicants and listers and others urged us to simplify that. So now if you have two lots with one owner that are contiguous, you can merge them with a simple deed activity. And then finally, the certificate of occupancy and compliance. Those are best practices that we have not had in place before and have put them in. So those are the changes in the proposal. Anything else is either very minor or typos or cleanups, and we can answer any questions to that. I'm going to stop sharing to give us a little more real estate on the screens for people. But at this point, I would like to open it up to the public. And I would ask, I don't think it's going to be a problem, but I would ask people to come to the front table, state their name. If need be, we will try to stick to a 3-minute time limit. If there are a lot of people that want to talk, I don't think that's going to be an issue this time. And I would ask that everybody gets a chance to speak once before people get a second chance to talk if they want to. So with that, I would open it up, and Stephen, maybe
You know,
you can work the room.
sure. Would you like to wait until after the public has spoken to read the comments supplied?
Yeah,
Okay.
let's get to the room first, and then we'll wrap around
Okay.
with the things that came in through email.
Great. So we'll turn it over to any member of the public who would like to have a question answered, make a comment in support or against. Jeff Lavelle?
Yeah. Am I supposed to sit here?
I think the camera will get you there.
Okay.
Yeah, the camera will focus on you. Thank you, Jeff. Yep.
Since nobody else, I would encourage other people to join in. So I'm Jeff Lavelle. I live on Spring Pond Road. I am speaking in my personal capacity and not in my official capacity. I am the chair of the Affordable Housing Subcommittee and on various boards, et cetera. I just want to commend you all for a really thoughtful process that went into preparing this, and what seems to be a very reasonable outcome. I mean, you focused on complying with state law, which is really important to try to bring our policies into compliance with state law so that it's easier for developers to understand what the rules are. You've, some thoughtful changes around accessory dwelling units to make that clearer. Again, conforming with state law, but just being clear. There's some important action for the agricultural sector, making it easier for farm-based businesses to locate and open air markets to locate in any district. Obviously, I support the affordable housing, increasing the affordable housing density bonus. It's never been used. Maybe if we make it a little bit bigger, it might has a chance of being used. So, I mean, there's a lot of other changes that we ought to be thinking about down the road, like, but I understand that wasn't the purpose here. The purpose here is to do the low-hanging fruit, to do the relatively uncontroversial things. And I think that you do that well and make real progress. So I just want to commend you and thank you for your hard work.
Thank you for your
Thank you,
input.
Jeff. We have Mary Layton on Zoom. You're muted, Mary.
I'm very supportive and appreciative of the work that's been done. I think we've got a very good set of zoning regulations to kind of preserve the character of our town. I'm very excited about the affordable housing effects of sort of kind of streamlining the accessory dwelling units and the duplexes and so forth. I read through most of it, and some sort of details just popped out at me. For instance, on the covered markets, are they required to have a paved entrance? Is that something that comes through from the state regulations? You know, it's things like that, like little details.
For the open air market.
Yeah.
It's an interesting question. So it is in the use statement. It says they must be on a paved road. And so then I would think it goes into the permitting process with the DRB and so forth to talk about what their parking lot needs to be done with. Is that?
Yeah, or if it needed an access road for whatever type of facility it was. I mean, would it be a parking lot, or if it has to go farther in, would it have to be paved? And, you know, it's just one of those details. It's probably too in the weeds for what you want to do tonight, but it was just an interesting question. Another thing was the riparian stream and river distances seemed enormous. You know, I think about Beaver Meadow Road, and are you trying to have a riparian district for the brook there? I mean, you probably do want vegetation as much as you can near the brook, but then I'm imagining these houses they just have yards. So, you know, there's things like that that a little new to planning, don't know how it plays out in real life, but overall, I think it's a great set of regulations. I'm very proud of you guys. So now I'll be quiet.
Oh, thank you.
Jan, if I could just talk
Yeah,
to
go ahead.
the riparian buffer, the shoreland protection overlay district, and I do agree with you that that entire district could be reviewed. 100 feet is it's quite large. In fact, I've had someone in my office today who has to go in front of the DRB because of you know, her entire parcel is in that district. So the goal here for this round was to modernize, and you know, we sort of decided not to take on sort of larger reform issues at this point. But certainly in our meetings, the shoreland protection overlay district came up as a topic for review. So we're going to continue to look at that. But thank you for acknowledging that it may have some issues.
Okay. Anyone else? Please.
Hi, I'm Susan Barrett. I live on New Boston Road here in Norwich. And I want to echo what Jeff Rubel said. I really appreciate your work in modernizing our zoning, and it looks like it's really coming into parallel with what the state suggests. And I appreciate that. I do support any opportunity to have more workforce and affordable housing in the state. I know that's not this, but I think that this is a really good proposal. I really appreciate all of your work, and I would encourage you to continue down this path, and I will be supporting you as you modernize our it's not a statute, it's zoning regulation.
Yeah, regulations,
Thank
land
you.
use regulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Marcia Callaway on Zoom. Sorry, we'll go back and forth. Marcia?
Sure. Hi, Jan. I couldn't find in the zoning regulation document, page 35, table 3.2 refers to a section 3.2. Is that the same thing? Because I couldn't find a section 3.2.
I have the document in front of me. Let me have a look.
Page 35.
Page 35. Yep.
Yep.
Table 3.2 refers to section 3.2.
Yeah.
Note 2. Those are, you'll find that in our subdivision regulations, which is a separate and standalone document from the zoning regulations. And what that refers to is our process to calculate and allocate lots based on density and some other factors. A density calculation.
Thank you. So we should be reading this in conjunction with a different document, the subdivision regs?
Yes, the public hearing and the proposed changes include both documents. The vast majority of the edits are to the zoning regulations, but there are a few to the subdivision regs.
Okay. And one follow-up, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
So we have right now one farmer's market, and if it moves across the street to the 34.7 acres, my understanding is that there's restricted access for how many access points you can have off Route 5. So if we couldn't have that and the access was going to be on the much smaller Hobson Road, can you tell me how that would work and, you know, where I should be looking in these regulations to understand that?
I would say that jurisdiction over access points on Route 5 would be under V-Trans. So V-Trans would have to approve that that access permit.
Right, so I guess my question is, if they didn't, then,
If they did,
Then it
well,
would roll into the whole DRB permitting process for in the Norwich, using the Norwich regs, but there are points in here relating to access and who, how that rolls into the permitting, correct, Stephen? Highway access.
Yeah, hey, Jan,
Yeah, go ahead.
the town has a driveway permit requirement for any parcel. Any state road also has a driveway permit requirement. And they need to do duplicative.
Isn't there a conditional use process that they would have to go through
The driveway permit paradigm has nothing to do with the DRB in the context of those approvals, but I suspect the DRB would want those approvals for its.
yeah, the access permits are provided by the town through the Department of Public Works. V-Trans would have jurisdiction over Route 5 South, so
132 as well.
yes. And I don't want to speak to their process. I don't know what it is. I do know that the Development Review Board would require access in the form of an access permit, be it from Route 5 or from Hobson. But I don't, there's no proposal on the table for anything at this point in terms of that property, so it's hard to say.
so sorry to be monopolizing this, but just, there's nothing in these regs that one could look to for guidance?
In terms of an access permit, no, the access permits are, that's under the jurisdiction of the Department of Public Works and by extension, the Select Board.
Thank you.
Okay. And someone in the room there?
My name is Jocelyn Blair. I'm on Beaver Meadow Road in town here. Feeling a little in my head after that last conversation, but I'm here to voice support for the open air market. I'm a regular customer at the Norwich Farmers Market, and it is part of what makes it joyful. And part of what I think brings a lot of character and visitors to the area. So supportive of anything that we can do to improve the accessibility and thank you.
All right.
I think it was important to the Planning Commission to, recognize the number and types of agricultural uses present in town already. The Norwich Farmers Market being one of them. But there's a number of accessory on-farm businesses that exist and thrive, and sort of general consensus is to encourage that.
Yeah. Do you want to, Stephen, if you want to read the two things into the record, or one, I think, is a summary of multiple emails, and then.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to acknowledge that, in addition to Susan and Jocelyn's support, the zoning office received 10 additional letters from residents of Norwich and fans of the Norwich open air market. I'm not going to go through and read them all, but I do want to acknowledge for the record that we received 10, and these are available to anyone if they would like to see them.
What, in general, are they supportive of something? Is there a way to characterize what?
Sorry, yes, all of them are in support of, our efforts to, provide a mechanism for open air markets, agricultural uses in general, and, just the modernization of our bylaws, a lot of appreciation for that. They're all in support.
Well, yeah, and I think to be specific, they are in support of the proposed definition of an open air market.
Yeah.
Conditional use in all districts, that as proposed,
Yes.
there that support. Okay, so let's go to Jackie Allen and then we can go back to the letter you have, Stephen. Jackie?
Yeah, thanks, Jan. I appreciate that. I just wanted to say thank you. First of all, Jackie Allen, Union Village Road. Thank you to the Planning Commission. I think this is a job well done, and I'm glad to hear the progress being recognized because it's well deserved. Congratulations.
Thank you. Stephen, you want to read that letter in?
Yeah, I can. So we received some, excellent, valuable commentary from Mr. Christopher Katuki. And so I want to acknowledge receipt of this letter, and I'll just speak briefly to its contents.
We don't see it.
Yeah, we really can read that.
You want to share it?
Thank you.
Yeah, Jan, can you see this? Can people in Zoom see this? No.
No, we don't
Okay.
see you sharing anything.
Sorry, I was sharing it.
I mean,
on my
I
screen,
can,
not,
I can share it or you can, either way.
Can
There you go.
we all now see this? Okay. So I want to, like I said, acknowledge receipt of this excellent set of comments and just sort of speak to them briefly. It's items A through F. First, the acknowledging that there's no provisions to prohibit specific provisions to prohibit short-term rentals in the town of Norwich. As you guys saw on the first slide, that's a topic that the Planning Commission is going to review in the next coming months. However, as it's written now, any use that is not explicit as a use in our various zoning districts is prohibited. So with no specific provisions for short-term rentals, the sort of disposition of my office is that they are prohibited. There's no way to permit them. There's a recommendation that, we look at the zoning districts. We have Village Residential 1 and 2. They have different square footage for lot sizes. I think the intent was not to open up our zoning districts at this point, but that is something we will look at in the future. Items C and D refer to sort of typos and little administrative errors, which we will attend to hopefully at the conclusion of the public hearing. Chris makes a good point about our signs provisions. We have specific provisions for signage in the town of Norwich through our bylaws. And I think in conversation of amongst the Planning Commission, we've identified our signs and fences provisions as needing some work. Chris's letter highlights that. And I think we'll look to that in a future round of sort of reform efforts. We significantly reduced the sort of regulations imposed on telecommunications facilities, and which I think is a good thing. as Chris reads, we can, I think this is a good one to read through. He suggests that it may be a mistake to remove all the restrictions currently set forth in section 4113 C through K. That's the specific use provisions that cover telecommunications facilities. He continues, although zoning regulations are preempted in PUC proceedings, PUC being the Public Utilities Commission, they remain relevant with respect to the PUC's obligation to give substantial deference to the recommendations of a select board and a planning commission. And it's specifically noted in statute that a municipal body may base recommendations on zoning regulations adopted under the title that governs municipal zoning, among other things, and specifically to section 4412, which describes limitations on bylaws. Long story short, our zoning regulations can be used in a PUC proceeding. But he then goes on to note that what we had in section 4113, which we've removed in this version, didn't directly talk to substantial deference in any case. I think this is important work, and we should have alignment between our sort of town plan and our bylaws in terms of how we'd like to see telecommunications facilities regulated, as well as solar facilities. And this is an ongoing conversation within the Planning Commission. So I think this is important information, and the Planning Commission will take it up at a future.
Yeah, I think just to chime in, I think the way I read this, not the legal details, but the whole tying it in with the conversations around solar siting and substantial deference and energy plan, the town plan updates, we should look at both telecommunications and solar siting with the philosophy that the town would like to have as much influence as possible on these sorts of things within the town. So what can we do to get substantial deference, which for those who don't know, that's the stronger version of influence. You can either have substantial deference or merely due consideration. So we want to have substantial deference, and we want the plan to support the ability to do that. So I think we will want to include the telecommunications facilities in that conversation going forward. But I think I would leave it to the Planning Commission after this, after the public hearing, to decide whether we want to revisit anything in the current edits.
And finally, his comment provides some specific language to strengthen the provision for other uses being a use that's proposed that is not specifically listed as conditional or permitted in a zoning district. We're going to provide the DRB the ability to consider uses outside of that sort of limited scope. And Chris has provided a recommendation to strengthen that language.
So again, we'll take that one up specifically.
Yeah.
What looks like a good idea for discussion on this specific edit. Okay.
That's
Good.
That's
So
it.
Thank you very much to Chris for that work. There's a lot of thought and research that's gone into that, and some of it we'll use right away. Linda Gray.
Hello, thank you. And I want to echo some of the comments you heard already, which is thank you for your work. And in particular, I want to say I am personally very pleased by the the changes that end up supporting more and diverse housing. And so thank you for that. And I also, by virtue of that, let you know of my support for future work in the same area. So that's it. I appreciate your work.
Thank you, Linda. Any other comments from the group? Okay.
Since my wife is taking care of children, if I don't share something in person, it would be a waste of a lot of effort. So I'm Cody Williams, 239 Metrobrook Road. I just wanted to say thank you, first of all, in reading a bit of this. It was exhausting reading it, so I can imagine the hours and hours of work that goes into it. So thank you. But also specifically wanted to voice my support for a lot of the agricultural changes and the open air market changes. I think the Norwich Farmers Market has a huge outsized positive impact on our community. So thank you for everything you can do to encourage more of that. So
Thank you.
thank you all.
Thank you.
Can I, I just wanted to say one more thing. I'll go really quickly.
Just at least.
Okay, no. I just wanted to say that, I am the community member on the farmers market board, and first of all, I've never worked with such amazing people as those farmers from the Norwich Farmers Market, and I just want to, support them in any way we can, and I think that these changes do that, so thank you for that. And it's been raining a lot, so if everyone could go to the market on Saturday, I think we'd be really happy. Even if it rains.
Hi, my name is William Maskill. I live on Hobson Lane. I love the farmers market. I think it's great. I enjoy shopping there on the weekends, usually when it's not raining. Sorry about that. But I live right across the street from the proposed site for the relocation. On the one hand, I'm excited to be able to walk right out of my front door and be able to go there. But on the flip side, particularly when combined with the proposed changes to the density bonus for low income housing, I'm a little concerned about the impact it's going to have in terms of runoff from the site, in terms of traffic, things of that nature. So I'm torn. I love the market. I would love to encourage it, but I'm a little nervous about some of the knock-on effects that may come to bear on our local neighborhood if the full plan goes forward the way it's proposed. So.
Yeah, and I hear that, and would like to offer two things. One, we're just looking at sort of this use at large within the town of Norwich. But I want to also say that if a plan does present itself,
right,
to move across, there would be a public hearing where all these topics would be reviewed in depth, and
wonderful.
You would be able to participate in that hearing and provide that comment, which would be weighed by the Development Review Board.
Of course. There's so many comments in support, so many comments, some comments on both sides. I just wanted to weigh in at an early stage. So I appreciate it.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and really, just to paraphrase the Planning Commission's conversations getting to this point, we added the definition and made it a conditional use in all districts to allow the use to be considered in a full process, including the DRB. And we don't, as the Planning Commission, address any single project. There is no project on the table. That it is a definition and a conditional use that then allows a process to open up. But the Planning Commission understood that. We were not voicing support for a specific project. We were allowing the use as a possibility. Marcia? You're muted.
Sorry about that. Thank you again. I did find section 3.2, and I'm looking at that particular page on the subdivision regulations, page 16. And I'm noting that it makes a mention under the minimum lot size that it should be 20,000 square feet, not less than that unless there's a planned unit development approved. I'm just wondering, there are some places in Norwich that have pre-existing Act 250 permits, and that's not addressed, I don't think, here. So how does that work?
Jeff?
Jeff?
Act 50 in a zoning town kicks in over 9 units. Has nothing to do with our local regs.
I live in one. I have
Well, I
one.
understand. Act 250 only applies for residential purposes for more than 9 residential units. There's a process, if you look at the 10 criteria, local reviews required, but if you're not either commercial at 10 acres or more than 9 units, Act 250 is not applicable, and it's not appropriate in to address Act 250 in our regs.
Okay, so I guess what I'm saying is, if you've got a 50-year-old or 40-year-old Act 250 permit, it's still valid. There's no mention of these pre-existing ones that didn't require 9 units, for example. That's what I'm wondering. What do you do about the pre-existing?
As far as I know, they're still valid, and I don't think there's certainly
Yeah, they're valid.
we're not changing anything related to that topic.
Yeah,
in-
I'm just wondering if
in
it needs to
action.
be, sorry, I just wondered if it needed to be addressed here, you know, that they do exist or something, because this says just unless it's a planned unit development.
I think it would come under the grandfathering clauses of various types of pre-existing things, but Stephen?
Jeff?
Yeah, this is like the public water supply thing. Any project that has an Act 250 permit stays with the land in perpetuity. We don't need to log that, the state already has. Going forward, I think what Marcia read suggests something related to a future project that may require Act 250 permitting. So we're not logging existing Act 250 permits, nor are we logging existing water supply permits. State's already got them.
Yeah, and you know, in general, local permits are conditioned on the receipt of any necessary state or federal permits. So if you obtain a local permit for a project that requires Act 250 permitting, you still have to go through the Act 250 permit process. It's separate state jurisdiction. So I don't think our subdivision regulations need to speak to Act 250.
Yeah, we can't affect it, essentially. We're not going to change it either way.
Right. I just wondered, because you were mentioning unless it's part of a PUD, you know, maybe unless it's also under a pre-existing Act 250.
I think it's anything in those regs is applicable going forward. It has no backward vision to it. So it doesn't need to state things looking backwards.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments from the room or from Zoom? Pam Smith.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank the Planning Commission for all of this work they've done. And as a lister, but not representing the Board of Listers, just myself as a lister, I would like to say that I was very pleased to see the inclusion of the merger of lots provision. And also I am in support of the certificate of completion and the certificate of occupancy. I think that will be helpful to the listers in working with our zoning administrator. So thank you for all your work.
Great. Thank you, Pam. Yes, I believe it was the first meeting I had on the PC in Tracy Hall two plus years ago. Cheryl came and put the lot merger on the table. So this is the first time we've changed the zoning reg since then, and we included it. Any other comments from the public? All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. That'll all be in the record, including the details of the emails that came in and other comments. The sign-up sheet and so forth will all be in the public record as part of this going forward, just so people are clear. The Planning Commission will now talk about any changes we might want to make based on public comment to the proposed amendments. We will then submit our final version to the legislative body, the Select Board. The Select Board, as part of their process, is required to have a public hearing. So you will see at some point in the not too distant future a public hearing by the Select Board on these very similar topics. And unless there are changes desired or discussed, it will be a kind of a replay of this hearing. But so with that in mind, I would stop the public hearing, and I would like to, did you have Stephen, are you?
I think we should make a motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, I would be willing, I'll entertain that motion, Jeff.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
Nope. I had a hand that raised and then went away, so.
I was supporting the motion.
Oh, okay. No, that would just be for the Planning Commission members, but thank you. We'll take all the support.
It was support. It was waving. It wasn't voting. I'm sorry.
All right, no problem.
Guys.
All right. Well, thank you all. We will now switch to the Planning Commission regular meeting. If we want to give it just a minute to clear out.
Our property is almost entirely in that, so we're one of those. All
right.
Yeah.
That's 3 stories.
Yeah, remember. I heard about that and somewhere in there, I remember I looked at it back then, because it's like this thing. Well, before you go, I'm just speaking with us. More recently. I think it's something to do with
Mid-60s. They're on a hot mic.
Is it already staying up? Like, it's one of the few towns that isn't, aligned with that or something. I forget exactly. It was a while ago. But
Yeah.
But
There's the shoreline protection, which was 2014. And thank you both. And we're going to appreciate that. Yeah.
I hope your mom's there. Sit up straight.
Water. Thankfully, our house is sort of well above and beyond this area.
You're almost done with
Our school. Are you still?
Yeah.
During that.
All right. Can we get back together?
It was a road down, it was like.
Yeah, order in the court. What's Stephen doing?
The road was disappearing. That's crazy. Anyway, thank you all.
Thank you. All right.
Okay.
We still have mom.
Can I get a motion on the agenda and then we'll have a discussion on that?
We'll go for the agenda.
Yeah. Sure. All those in favor of the agenda as stated? Jeff?
Well, we could probably talk about this, but it's not necessary. We can absolutely. approve these.
Let's do it this way, Stephen. It'll be,
Okay. Yeah, it's cool.
all those in favor?
I,
All right, let's run with that agenda. Now, Stephen's point, which will just continue the assumed first point on the agenda is to continue the discussion of the topic of the public hearing. It doesn't kind of read that way on the agenda as written, but that's what we need to continue with. Jeff?
yeah, so I have a question as a point of order for the select board. Since 4 out of 5 participated, I think they need to notice a public hearing. And I'd like to put that on our minutes.
What do you?
I'm just saying, if I were.
Can you, can you, we should, it will be in our minutes that 4 out of 5 of the select board participated.
My dear friend Stuart Richard would ask them to, post the notice retroactively. So just want to go on the record in consideration of state law.
All right, so noted. So let's open up the agenda topic of the amendments, the edits as proposed, and any of the public comments. Stephen, do you have a running list? So we have a couple of typos that I would say, the adding the open air market to the CI district.
Yeah.
And there were a couple others like that. And then the specific edits to the similar uses or other uses language.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's another, there's the letter from the DRB in regards to the allotting future lots at the time of subdivision. I had hoped that Alec Orenstein, the vice chair of the DRB, would attend. And, we did, I shared they sent a letter to the planning commission. We discussed it in open meeting. I relayed that back to the DRB, and they felt, and they said, well, you should have the planning commission watch this video very strongly that, there had been a history of the planning commission asking the DRB for recommendations, and they have one. And they would like the DRB the planning commission to attend to this issue in this round, as opposed to a future round. And I would just like to go on the record as as the zoning administrator, it's, I wonder if it's even legal to ask a landowner to allocate future lots and have them record it on the Mylar, which has the most evidentiary weight, in perpetuity, a sort of lot assignment, when our land use regulations can and do change. What happens to those poor people whose lots were decided, and you happen to be the third owner of that piece of land, and say that piece of land is 62 acres? Shouldn't you have the full right to the subdivision regulations that anyone else has? So the recommendation is to delete that section from the DRB. That's their point. I think at some point we're going to have to look at the Article 3.2 as sort of globally. I don't think there's much impact right now to removing that clause. I don't think the DRB has consistently applied it either.
Okay, well, let's stick with that for a minute. Does everybody here understand the topic on the table, because I think we jumped to that fast, and I want to make sure. Jeff?
Yeah, so, well, I might agree with Steve and the recommendation. So my broad question is, bunch of stuff got said tonight. Is there a way to consolidate it, in some, I think, relatively simple edits? There's some stuff Chris Katuki added that ain't gonna be that simple, can go into the future,
Yeah,
that we can review a week from now. So once we see it in writing, can we revisit this after some effort to codify, for lack of a better way to say it, the discussion that we can address tonight? And then come back to other issues later. And thank you, Mary Layton, for addressing the river stuff. But on the front of density, let me forge into some dark ground here because I'm intimately familiar with it. So hypothetically, the battle is over the fact that the Planning Commission, as Steve said, excuse me, the DRB, has not allocated density by lot in the subdivision context. That said, if we delete that section, which I don't object to, it doesn't change the weight of the regulations with respect to the parcels that have been subdivided. So I would be fine with deleting that section because it could be reconsidered in the future. And that would say to applicants, hey, look, understanding that you're not going to be carrying this lot density forward. Here's what it is today. You meet those rules. We're going to give you the subdivision. At some future date, if regs change, it may affect how you can be allocated density and at another time.
Okay. So there were a couple of things you talked about, and I want to, can I just question, Marcia, what topic are you raising your hand for? That one. Okay. Let me just generally get a plan here for the evening, and I think what Jeff's proposing, which has some merit, rather than try and do live edits all the way to final approval here, if we can agree as a group on the intent of any changes to our proposal, get them clear to Vince in the minutes and to Stephen, then those can be written down explicitly and sent out. I think we would have to have a warned meeting to approve them, but that could literally be a 10-minute special meeting a week from now. So that I think that's a reasonable plan. I don't think to force Vince to read back every edit that we're thinking about and getting it exactly right and voting tonight is kind of unrealistically is a bad method. So I think that's a decent way to do it. Any thoughts on that, just on process right now? Okay, so let's do that. Let's try and get Vince.
Yeah, I personally am a big fan of that. So.
Yeah. We can.
So let's try and get just the blocks of what's on the table and what's not on the table.
Okay.
And then we'll get agreement on intent for what is on the table. And then Stephen and Vince can nod their heads and say, you understand our intent well enough to be able to craft the words.
Yeah, and then we'll have a separate special meeting to approve a motion.
Yeah, I don't want to wait a month. I would rather ask people.
There might be a very good chance we could make that motion tonight. So let's
all right. Well, let's leave that as our fallback. If we have so what's on the table? Let's put it that way. We have the other uses language from Chris Katuki. We have typos associated with open air market into commercial industrial, and then whatever that E2 section thing was that he was referring to. We have telecommunications facilities as a question to the group, whether we want to look at that anymore or remove what we propose to remove. And we
Yep.
have the DRB topic of proposing to remove the section that requires max density to be put on the parcel at the first subdivision. What else is on the table or maybe on the table? Steve?
It's just Chris's email plus the DRB, is that,
Yeah.
so we can basically go through Chris's email, 1 through whatever, A through G, and then talk about the DRB. That would be probably the easiest, most straightforward way to do it.
I think that's true. I think he covers the other points. So that's fine. Do you want to pull that up again, or you can just read through it, Stephen, as we go? The first, there were several that we're not going to address.
Yeah, we could propose that, like, we take up A next time, like short-term rentals and Airbnb. I don't know if anyone has.
Yeah, that's next time. Although I do, well, that again, yes, I would table that one for later. I think it is a very interesting point, and Stephen agrees with it, that as is currently interpreted in our laws, in our bylaws, if it isn't permitted, then it's prohibited, is really the way it works, and there is no permitted method of getting a legal Airbnb. But that's not it's not on the table as proposed right now.
Yeah, let's just get, zoning districts next time, next time.
Yes, exactly. Next time.
Right.
C is a-
Yeah, C and D.
Yeah,
C is a yes. Everything else I say.
I agree. C and D, everything else goes to later.
I think,
Yeah.
and with the exception of
Other than
telecommunications,
sign.
if people wanted to review it, because we are changing it, I personally don't, but if people want to. But like C and D are
We
straightforward.
would have to craft something new for us though, right?
Right.
Not because that's.
Something new, and some of the things that we might suggest would be like, really significant setback requirements for cellular towers. I've heard some people suggest 1,000 feet from property lines, so, it's there. But as is, if we replace everything we deleted, none of that stuff improves, gives us.
I agree.
Yeah, I totally agree with it.
So let's delete and come back to it.
Yeah, I take this as, we learned a lot about solar siting and substantial deference and enhanced energy plans and so forth. I'd like to look at this in a holistic way in the town plan, and do it right. And I don't think what we deleted is worth keeping per se. We can do a better job on the next round.
Yeah, and in terms of signs, I kind of wish. I was more aware of, this opinion about our language. I agree with them. There is a lot of sort of content-oriented
Cracker Barrel.
advertising. And also, but that being said, we didn't.
Yeah, it's later. Unless somebody's jumping up and down, it's later.
It's later.
So would you motion to just approve C and D?
C and D, well, I would like to look at G. I think it's go to the bottom, because I think his suggestion on the other uses.
Pull the C and D language in, fine.
I don't want to take a shot at language right now.
No, I don't mean, for our next, so we're gonna.
So far, I think the two that we've agreed to are easy language. It's adding open air market as a conditional use of commercial industrial and whatever the E2 deletion is, or making it so that it references something that exists. So then I think, and from my conversations with Stephen, this G, see his changes, those underlined changes, the non-underlined things are proposed, proposal as it stands. So I think the changes he's underlined and put in are good, and I would propose adopting them. as part of our proposal. Is there discussion on that? Jeff?
Yeah, and I think we should defer this one, because I can ramble with Ernie for a while on it.
Well, here's the thing. If we defer it and we ramble about it, we're gonna have to have another public hearing.
Well, I'm putting this in the category of future consideration. So if I said,
take out entirely the idea of other conditional uses.
I don't have a problem with that, but I think we need to put some gloves on and fight it out. I mean, if I think about a home business, I can do everything. I'm not gonna say what I'm.
We have specific provisions for home-based businesses.
Got it, but other uses as a home business. So how do we address that? So I don't want to open up a permitted area.
There's no need to, it's either a home-based business of some type or it's not.
Yeah, but the way I read this is other uses. So
Well,
every time
to be clear, Jeff, we're not talking about, or we're not, I hope, opening up the wording we already approved, which is everything that isn't underlined, that is copied there under C, we've already approved as an amendment. The question on the table is whether the words specific, based on substantial evidence, and clearly are added to our already approved amendment. Is that?
I think it's a good idea. I like that language.
I had a question about, I like specific and I like clearly, and I would like to discuss what substantial evidence that you are not going to cause. I would like some examples of how you could prove that you wouldn't cause a problem.
Traffic studies, hours of
pedestrian
operation, it depends on what the other use.
I guess, how many customers you're gonna have.
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah.
that.
Yeah, and I like the word substantial because it can mean different things to you and I,
Mhm.
but we both know what substantial means.
Well, it also has a fairly constant meaning in law and stuff like that.
Well, it wasn't the substantial, it was the providing evidence. part
Okay.
Is what I assume that it would need to be substantial evidence if you provided the evidence, but
Yeah,
what is the burden of the amount of evidence that they would need? It seemed a little vague to me, but
I think
could be missing.
enough so the DRB could make a specific written decision. But
I mean, my point is that determination is subjective, which is the whole point of his added language. It's subjective. Substantial is like the evidence that it would be given in a courtroom and that the jury to have to listen to, look at, or a judge if there's no jury.
But the question is requiring evidence that it won't cause problems. That's what I was wanting to talk about, what type of evidence.
I'm gonna change my opposition and support similar type based on what's written.
The amendments, including the amendments to what we've already stated.
yeah. So
I'm fine with it as long as it's reasonable.
has your question been answered?
Yes, somewhat, yes, like what you said, like hours and just descriptions of what the business, specifics of what the business would be.
Yeah,
Would be enough evidence to.
It's incumbent on the applicant to say why it's a similar type, and you've convinced me.
Got it, okay.
yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Okay. So can we, to put this one to bed, can we vote to, well, let's roll them. We can roll them all in for a minute and then go to the DRB letter. Stephen?
Yeah. Yes, is everyone familiar with the letter? I didn't put it into I'll have to dig around a little bit to.
I'm sure I can find, what are you looking for?
The letter from the DRB. I mean,
Oh.
I have it, it might take me a second to pull it out.
No, just talk to it and I'll find it.
Okay, so it refers to a specific clause in our subdivision regulations. Article 3. So section 3.2, determination of maximum density under B, rural district. So this only applies to the rural district.
If you stop sharing, Stephen, I can show it.
Okay. It refers specifically to subdivision 5, I mean, clause 5. Which I can read it, or you guys can read it on screen. And specifically the last sentence, allocation of potential future lots to specific parcels shall be specified in the notice of decision and in the notes on the final recorded plat. Which, as I said earlier, it provides the strongest evidentiary weight compared to, say, a deed or other documents. It's on the Mylar, recorded with the town. That's pretty definitive in perpetuity.
So
Would you agree?
Yeah, and I don't want to do that.
I don't want to do that either. And the TRP specifically does not want to do that.
So I'm gonna restate my support for agreeing with you. So the notion is that DRB is looking at, here's the mechanism by which we evaluate the density, and you could have 12, but you only want 2. You're hereby approved. The findings of fact and the notice of decision that get published go with a lot. It doesn't allocate any density going forward, and it doesn't restrict what you can do going forward. It doesn't prohibit anything you might do going forward as the rules change. It simply says you conform today with these 2.
So
Unless
the
you put it on
proposal by the DRB and the proposal on the table right now is to delete that section 32B5
Yes,
and do no other changes, just delete that.
deletion.
Okay. So Marcia, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I agree it should be removed. And I would just point out in terms of Stephen's comment about legality, the rule against perpetuities. It's 27 VSA 501, conveyance of real estate, reformation of interest, violating the rule against perpetuities. So I just have a look at that, but I think 5 has got to go.
It's just not, it's not legal to bind it into perpetuity to say how many lots you can have long before things may change and so forth. Yeah.
That's all I
Nah,
wanted.
I don't know if recording
Thank you,
this
Marcia.
on does that, but it sort of appears like it does enough that I would recommend we remove it. And the DRB.
I mean, yeah, if I don't hear strong, I mean, does anybody have a strong feeling to keep it? Because the DRB is the sort of our customer on that one, and they're strongly asking for it. So unless somebody is really jumping up and down at our end advocating for it, then I think that carries the day.
If this is deleted, what happens going forward with situations that this has been applied to?
So if I just got a permit last month and like I know Buck Childs up on at the end there had put some numbers on his plats.
Is that outside our jurisdiction?
Right now it is, yeah.
Yeah, but like Marcia said, it doesn't affect anything.
And you know,
it's not legal.
Yeah, ultimately, if someone were to challenge this, even if they had a subdivision that was recorded with those allotments, I think they would win that case. So, I don't have an answer.
And we would help them win their case. It would help them win their case if we deleted that. And they could come in 2 years from now and say, wait a minute, these guys deleted it 2 years ago. You can't hold me to this. Jeff?
Yeah, hey, Jan, so if an applicant says, I want to restrict my parcel going forward, effectively putting a conservation easement on my land, they can do that.
Yeah, there's a variety of mechanisms.
That's a separate issue.
Yep. Yeah, that's different.
Covenants, deed restrictions, etc.
Yep.
But we shouldn't force them to make that decision.
Right.
I really don't think it's been implemented universally because the DRB was surprised.
Okay. Yeah, and I talked to that applicant and he was surprised and didn't quite understand what was being asked. So, okay. So are there other, thank you, Marcia. So we have those changes, which we can summarize in a minute. Are there other topics on the table which are edits to what we just took public hearing on? Any changes? Then we will make those changes, and then we will ask whether we need another public hearing. I think I know the answer to that. Then we'll move forward. So are there any other topics based on public hearing or things we got in the mail to talk about? Okay. So let's list what we got. So between Vince and Stephen, what do you have that we are changing on the proposal we just did a hearing of?
Christian
Based off of what,
rolled it out pretty nicely.
yeah, based off, Kentucky's letter, the, including the commercial industrial district, open air markets, and the list of permitted or conditional uses.
Yeah,
And then we do need to figure out what this is referencing. The next one is in the table, it references subsection E2, but E2 does not appear to exist, so we need to
Okay,
figure
yeah.
out what that is actually
yeah,
referencing.
let's see.
While he's looking that up, we can kind of go through the last one was other uses from the Kentucky letter, and everyone was okay with the including the underlying changes.
Yeah, include the underline and the DRB recommendation to delete that section, which I've taken down, but it's 3.2B5.
Yes.
Yeah, section 3.2B5 of the subdivision regulations to delete.
Okay.
And then Stephen, you're finding out what that E2 question is?
Yeah, I think we can just. So it's in the list of permitted uses in the commercial industrial districts, table 2.5. Number 10 is multi-unit dwelling. I mean, I think we could just delete C section E2.
Just delete the parenthetical on number 10, page 13.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Does everybody understand the proposed edits?
And was that in the zoning regulations?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I'll make one more pitch. I still don't love the word clearly in section C than the Chris Katecki email, but
Okay.
I think it puts the onus on everything we talked about, there's people who land on different sides of something, so.
I don't have a if you want to remove the word, I have no problem.
Just the word clearly, I'm fine with the first two, but
No problem.
I was kind of thinking the same way.
it's on, like, it's hard to get everyone to reach consensus, and so if the goal is to get everybody in the district to agree that your proposed specific other uses.
Yeah.
Again, clearly is kind of one of those legal words in this kind of case, and when you are in a jury or, there's a group of people and we're not a jury, but we make decisions also when the DRB does. The DRB is actually quasi judicial, so they do make their decisions a lot like clearly. When you say clearly, it's a kind of, when you see it kind of thing, but then some people will agree with, some people won't, but that's why they do things by vote.
Yeah.
And, that kind of a term, when it's before the DRB, they take votes. And so if everyone says, well, it's clearly detrimental or clearly not detrimental, that's how it works. And there's no way of really the same. You'd have to have so much more wording that would still be ambiguous and able to be worked around if you try defining what detrimental is. If you just simply say detrimental, well, my detrimental and your detrimental could be very different. And so that makes it worse too.
I'd like to take it out.
I'm I'm back on the fence.
Yeah, I mean, this is a hypothetical that you are proposing, may or may not. I mean, you're trying to look into the future and say, you know, based on this, that, well,
I think if you look at it in terms of, you know, the specific written determination by the DRB has to state, you know, based on evidence, that it's clearly not detrimental. So that it's really like, it sort of, you know, asks the DRB to take care in making their assessment. And that it's clearly understood that it is not detrimental or is detrimental. And I think that's helpful.
Well, that's another thing, they put down findings,
Yeah,
you know, there are findings of what made it clearly, so.
I propose to leave that term in there, specific written determination. I mean, I also said in Chris's own email to or submission, he defers to the planning commission on whether the proposed changes are too restrictive. So he acknowledges that he's swinging us all the way to restrictive end. I would meet us somewhere in the middle. I'm also happy to abstain on this one and move forward.
Let me argue what Steve just said. So if you can't show that it's clearly detrimental, which is, we're dealing with almost a double negative here. If you can't demonstrate that, you gotta approve it. If you can't demonstrate it's detrimental, then it's clearly not detrimental. Here's your
that's the
approval.
whole point.
I'm
And this
with
is-
you on that one.
This just asks that determination, you know, be based on something specifically written and be clear.
Okay, leave it in.
I liked it because it's such an open-ended, any other thing that could be out there that you could think of, that's pretty broad. I like that there's a little more restriction on.
Well, the other thing is, on top of it all, each time they make a decision of what's clearly and what's not clearly, that sets a precedent too.
Mhm.
And so,
You mean like people moving from Massachusetts to Norwich?
I don't know.
Is that clear?
That's clearly.
Now, he's saying
He's
that,
implying
he's saying because 35 years, 38 years ago, somebody from Massachusetts that he knows. moved here.
All right. We digress. From what I heard in the most recent flurry, the majority sound like they wanted to leave the word clearly in there. Christian, are you all right with that? Or did I read the consensus correctly?
Can we vote through the sections one by one, the proposed changes?
I guess you vote them all up.
Yeah,
That's fine too. I mean, you're just gonna get.
and so your argument against clearly is what?
The way we're changing it is putting the onus on, putting a lot of, they have to collect substantial evidence. It's a higher bar to clear for something that's already being voted on by the DRB and their decisions being documented. So I don't think we need to change the bar from here to here for every single other use request.
So the point is that if somebody wants to use this clause to do something that is not specifically allowed, and their argument is it's another use, it's similar in character, ... The DRB has work to do to allow that. They have to do the work to do a specific written determination with substantial evidence. So that's their burden of proof, or burden of justification by the DRB to allow that.
As a clarification though, if they can't clearly demonstrate that it comports with a similar permitted use, then does it become a conditional use in a similar context? Right now, we're fighting about a permitted use, and I mean that with love and affection, right?
No.
That section talked about
I thought this was all conditional.
This is other
all
conditional.
conditional, okay, because I thought it said the word permitted in that paragraph.
Conditionally permitted.
Yeah.
Conditional and permitted?
No, conditionally.
Conditionally permitted is the way it's written.
Yeah.
So
Beyond,
I agree that we've raised the bar and we've given the DRB the work to where if they want to use this to conditionally approve something, they've got to justify it. Having the word clearly in there just makes it a little bit tighter, higher a requirement for them to do.
And if we take out clearly, I mean, they still have to find that it's not detrimental to other uses in the district.
Well, they have to be specific and they have to have substantial evidence and they got to write that all up. So, I mean, I do think that 2 out of 3
Yeah.
of those terms ratchets it up.
So I think we can take out clearly. I don't know.
I mean, I'm not trying to strong arm, like, I'm also happy to up, down everything and then just in on one, like.
Yeah, but I think it would make sense to contain all of these in a single motion.
Yeah.
And it also might be good for this one to get someone from the DRB's opinion.
Too late.
It's too late.
Yeah, I
No,
mean, I think that I personally, just to state my opinion, I would say leave off clearly the 2 additions. Add some requirements to use the thing, but they don't, make it so difficult that it'll never be used. This C as a revision was in the proposal. The DRB has seen it. If they hated it or loved it, they could have commented anytime in the last month when it was on the books. And I don't think we're changing it radically enough to bring it up to them again.
Yeah, I think clearly can go. That's
all right.
But I don't have a vote, so
I'm fine
doesn't matter what
with removing clearly or not adding clearly.
Not adding clearly is what we're doing. Bob?
I go along with that. I think I like Christian's point.
But the other
say
two,
not.
but the other 2 underline is good.
Yeah.
The other 2 underlined additions are put in. Yes.
Yeah, I'm willing to flip on my flop to agree with these guys.
Yeah, 3 flips and 1 flop equals whatever. Yep. Okay. Are people clear? Are people clear on the proposed changes, and we can do this all in one?
Yeah. Sorry.
I mean, I'm still in favor of having the word clearly there.
Noted.
Thanks. We're now in the minority.
I like
Yeah,
it.
I'm not gonna vote.
Yeah.
Are we gonna make one single vote, or are we gonna go through each word?
I would like to take one single vote on the 4 or 5 changes, please.
You didn't flip flop.
Consistency is
No, I didn't.
So 3 changes, right? Is that where we landed?
Yes. Was there, does this cover that starred thing from your
Yes,
presentation?
the start thing it was in Kentucky's letter about putting it in the CI district, just making sure open air market was in all 4 districts.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. All right. Are we clear? Can I have a motion to approve those changes as?
So moved.
Jeffrey, do I have a second? Bob?
Second.
Any further discussion of that motion?
Can you repeat your motion? There was chatter.
Well, his motion is based on your list of changes, so I don't think he will ask you to repeat it.
Okay. Who made this again?
I made a
Okay,
motion based on what you said.
Got it.
A motion to accept number C from the Kentucky letter, table 2.5.
Okay.
D from the Kentucky letter 2.5, and to change the other use clause to accept the first 2 underlined written.
And we're also deleting the
DRB.
The DRB.
You're deleting DRB section referenced.
It's section 3.2B5
of subdivision of regulation. Yes.
And we're also deleting under table 2.5, page 13, number 10, multi-unit dwelling. We're deleting the parentheses C subsection E2.
So.
Oh, okay. I've got that.
Okay.
Yes. So those
All
4
right.
things will be accepted into our current Yeah.
would be included, we included into the bundle of changes.
Okay.
Ernie?
Now, yeah, I want to just know that Ken, my objection to deleting clearly, the word clearly, even though because I'm not going to hold up the whole thing just because I have that one, one disagreement, but I'd like to say that, I'd like it to be noted that it will come back and haunt us at some point.
Those words exactly?
Noted.
Yeah, say that.
Okay.
I mean, we will be a debate at some point where it's not clear and somebody's gonna be arguing and the DRB is at some point gonna ask us to put the word clearly in.
I like that. You haunt me at every meeting.
Ernie is gonna haunt you no matter what, Jeff, so, you know.
Yeah,
This is just another
Well, the thing is, it's
area.
a comment, it's not part of.
All right.
It will be included in the minutes.
That's
all right.
saying.
I'm
That's
gonna
all.
let's call the question, people. I will call it, and all those in favor of the motion as presented.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. Unanimous. All right, so then a question to the group. I assume, correct me if I'm wrong or if you think differently, I don't think what we just changed warrants another public hearing. Would you agree? Okay. So
If
that
it depends, somebody will let us know.
Yeah.
Clearly.
yeah, clearly.
Specific.
So that means we have now, I don't think we need another motion to submit that to the select board. We already put it on the table, or do we, Stephen, just to wrap this all up?
I think we can wrap that portion into that motion. And so.
Yeah, just say, these are the edits, these are the final
As
edits
amended.
based on public hearing comment. And with those edits included, we go forward with the process.
Authorize the chair to send the proposal to the legislative body.
So no need for another meeting, we're done.
Correct.
No more meetings.
No more meeting. Well, yeah, except for that list of 5 substantive topics I put up there to say we needed to deal
We're
with.
gonna find another commission to join if we're doing no more meetings.
Well,
No, I'm good with this. Make the
Yes.
changes sent.
Yep.
so.
All right, wonderful. We're done. So we will put that
We're
on.
not done with the improvement, but we are done with it.
Yeah, we're gonna, so I would ask the group, and I guess, let me ask it this way, because I want to get us to get something done before the July meeting that helps us with this prioritization exercise, but I want to close tonight before we turn into pumpkins. And that is what I would ask is we had a list of 5 things there on the big topics, and town plan was one of them, which is clearly a pretty sizable single topic. But what I would ask is for the planning commission members to come to the July meeting with some, having really given it some thought about, of those listed, of the subsets of, so town plan, enhanced energy plan, housing, transport, what are the priorities? I would like us to be able to kind of brainstorm, put a list of possible topics on the table, and then as a group rank them and prioritize them. And actually it's similar to the exercise we did in deciding what was going to be in this first bundle of work. We're going to want to decide what's going to be in the second bundle of work. Is it the town plan first? Is it the town plan in parallel with a few chunks of subdivision regs that we just postponed? Anyway, if people could really give that some thought, and certainly if you want anybody to see the results of your thinking, then just get it in the packet for the July meeting, because that's what we'll try and do, is give ourselves marching orders for the next 6 months coming out of the July meeting. Okay. With that, I would say, yeah, Bob.
Ask a quick question. I mean, this is more of just a finger in the wind kind of thing. I think capital planning was on the, or maybe that was, we were not going to discuss it, that's not, I don't know if that also was the, did that just come up today, capital planning, and my question is, because are we still deferring to the, select board and their view that, or are we, you know?
No, it is certainly something we can talk about in the sense that I have enough interest from informal conversations with the select board that we've gotten over that logjam. And if we want to do some work on it and then connect in with the select board, we could. So we definitely have no reason to wait on capital planning.
And whatever interesting, but as interesting to the public, but it just seems like there is some, you know, sort of a burden on us to do our, you know, do the blocking and tackling and, you know. Anyway,
It's certainly, if we wanted to say one of the top priorities is to add a capital plan section to our town plan, that would be something that is totally within the purview of the planning commission. We could do work on it and in parallel reach out to the select board to do that in a way that really works together with them. So we are in a place where that could happen if it makes it towards the top of the priority list. Okay, great. Can I get a motion on, we got a lot of minutes. Let's take them one at a time. Jeff?
Hey, I just didn't move them all, but I have a question. The two I printed, there's one should be 422.
Yeah, there's a typo for the text. And one online has been corrected, just because I thought, you know, that's a de minimis sort of.
It's
Okay.
fine. I move all three.
Okay, so what are those dates or for Vince? The dates of the minutes we are moving?
Oh, I see, it's the title of the title of the minutes that doesn't match with the file name. Is that
Yeah,
what
what was, yeah, we met on the 8th of April, and then we met on the 22nd of April, right? Is that the right?
I have the 29th.
29th, then change
I
it to
can
29th.
tell you.
Then we met on the 13th.
We
of
met
May.
on, 8, 29, and 13.
So as long as we get the dates right, I wanna move to approve all.
All right.
three.
Okay, I think it's just that top line that,
Yeah.
I copied
All right.
from, I didn't change it in the middle in one of them, so. The
Okay,
four,
so I have a
eight,
motion
four-
for those 3 dates of minutes. Do I have a second for that motion? Bob?
Second.
All right. Any conversation, discussion, edits, comments on any of those 3 minutes? Knocked it out of the park, Vince. All right, let's call it. All those in favor of approving those 3 minutes? All set? Approved? Unanimous? Any other topics before we adjourn?
Good job, everybody. That was great.
Yes, that was very good. We got it through.
I am going to say nothing.
We did it.
The adoption period, they started in 2001 and ended, 1999 and ended in 2009.
Well, I assume they made more changes than we did, but with this, we are priming the pump from everything from the public hearing to just ourselves learning how to do this. This was, and we intended it this way. We had to get current and we wanted to get our feet wet and learn how to do this. And so that's exactly what we needed to do, and we did it. So thank you all for the efforts. And now we take our newfound skills and dig into some meaty topics.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm a vegetarian.
Too late. No. We had a full room too. I mean, that was pretty impressive. That's great.
So was your sense that people that didn't talk were just sort of pro farmers market people? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
We had some interested parties.
Yep.
We're just watching.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn on the table?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we got to vote on it quick. No discussion needed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Beautiful. Thank you, everybody. Good piece of work. Have a good night.
Thanks. You too.